got into office against him and his administration. He's been under investigation from a special counsel since day one. I mean, the guy is kicking ass with a lot of stuff going against him right now. Unreal.
But seriously, I want an answer. If Trump is mentally ill, unqualified, incompetent, what does that make Chuck Schumer when he gets owned by the president?
But listen, Gene, Chuck Schumer's just like, I don't know. He's just, I guess he was always in the national spotlight, but definitely more so now with this whole government shutdown thing. But you're from New York. Did you ever think Chuck Schumer was actually sane? I mean, maybe the American people are finally getting a glimpse at what their future may hold if the Democrats ever retake the Senate. But this doesn't shock me or you. I hope it doesn't shock you. It
doesn't shock me. He's always been a master of politics and angles. But when the rubber hits the road, what exactly has he accomplished? His own personal ascendance in the party, for his own party, but nothing of real substantial worth, Russ.
But you mentioned this earlier, Gene. Okay, he went up through the ranks of his own party, but who is he truly, what constituency is he truly representing when he shut down the government? I don't get, what was the end game for him? Well, does he think the DACA people are going to become legal and start voting Democrat immediately? I don't understand, what was the end game?
Here's my theory right before we go to break, but I'm going to let you get the last word, Russ. But my theory is he was bullied into this position by the fringe of his party. We've always said that the fringes are where the policy's made and it drags the center along with it. I think he got dragged into that battle by the fringe of his party. And I think over the weekend he recognized, I have 10 senators in states where Trump won that have to live with whatever we come up with. And I think he backpedaled in thinking that he was going to lose a battle, but he didn't want to lose the war, and the war is the midterm 2018 election. You get the last word, Russ.
Gene, I honestly think that you have something there, but I really think that he thought he was going to pressure McConnell, Ryan, and Trump to pass DACA. I really do. The Democrats never get blamed for a government shutdown, and this time around, not only did they get blamed, they lost the narrative in the media. Even the left-wing media basically blamed Schumer, and they're just not used to this, Gene. I really think he went in thinking he was going to pull out a win.
It could well be. What he did come out with was an IOU, and we'll see how those are cashed out. When we come back, though, we're not going to leave you hanging. We're going to talk about the biggest giveaway in Behind Enemy Lines history, and also the latest on the whole Fusion GPS FISA court investigation by the House, and what releasing the memos really, really means to Republicans. It's a doozy, folks. Gene and Russ, Behind Enemy Lines, will be back right after these brief words. If you're a long-time listener of the show, or maybe this is your first time listening, you can probably tell that me and the gang here, we like to have our share of fun, whether it's on or off the air. We talk about 2-drink minimum radio and no medication Wednesdays or whatever day it may be. That's why when we found the people at Less Government, More Fun, we knew it was a match made in heaven with this show. Folks, we live in a time where government is out of hand. Our founding fathers did not intend government to be all-consuming in all parts of our lives. That's why we are telling you to go to lessgovmorefun.com, check out the website, check out the swag. What the people want is less government, more fun. Pass it on, make it happen.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke, and you could save.
Your friend, teacher, boss.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. F-A-S-T. That's F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in the recovery of
your neighbor, the waiter, grandmother, grandfather.
So learn FAST, the sudden signs of a stroke, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
Your wife, your colleague.
Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Behind Enemy Lines. Back on the air. Gene and Russ, back Behind Enemy Line. Folks, before we get on with the rest of the show, just want to say thanks for listening to Behind Enemy Lines Radio. I'm Gene, he's Russ. And in case you're wondering, this show is always on at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And in case you missed any part of this show, when we normally put it up online, you can always check us out at one of our rebroadcast outlets, including WJHC Talk 107.5 FM in beautiful Jasper, Florida, WDDQ Talk 92.1 FM, Adele, Georgia, and WLBB News Talk 1330 AM, all a part of the Talk America Radio Network, powered by ICRN, the Internet's conservative radio network. You can also check us out at KLRN Radio, Lone Star Talk Radio and Sackheads Media, and of course Lanterns Radio. Check us out at lanterns.buzz. But if you missed any of those rebroadcasts, don't worry, no problem. We got you covered. You can always check us out as a podcast. We're available on, oh my goodness, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbay, Player FM, Google Play Music. You can find us on Auto Radio, which is part of Sirius XM. Also, check us out at SoundCloud and the mighty iHeartRadio Network. Got through it without a problem, Russ. Look at that.
Gene, unreal. I love it.
Yeah, we're adding more affiliates, hopefully week to week, month to month, and you'll hear about all those in the weeks and months to come. Russ, let's talk a little seriously now about what's going on in the House with regards to Fusion GPS, the classified information found there, the text messages back and forth between Strauss and Lisa Page, the two lovebirds in the FBI, and this whole conglomerate and what it actually means to the American people. There is something big on the horizon, Russ. I can feel it coming in the next few weeks with this whole release the memo situation.
I hope the memo is not a big dud, because I'd hate for a lot of attention to go to the memo, which we could talk about a little bit, but I really do think there's something big happening. I agree with you, Gene. That I kind of teased it last segment, but it's hard to even say this. But there truly is, I get the feeling that there is borderline treasonous activity going on within the FBI and possibly the Department of Justice. I mean, when you're talking about like taking out an insurance policy in case a particular candidate wins an election, I don't know how else to take that, Gene. Like, they basically were plotting the downfall of the winner of the election. What else do you call that? I mean,
you have to call it something criminal, treasonous, whatever you want to call it. Let's set the field for our listeners so they know exactly what's going on. As people know, there's a House committee investigating the facts and circumstances surrounding the creation of the Fusion GPS dossier created by Christopher Steele, who formerly of British intelligence, that was hired through an intermediary by the DNC and Hillary Clinton's campaign to rake up some muck on Donald Trump. There is now discussions as to whether the Obama Justice Department and the FBI during the Obama administration were actually giving information into that dossier. And that all is happening within the backdrop of the Hillary Clinton investigation being done by this agent Strauss, who apparently was working on that, as well as now was also a part of the Mueller investigation. But when he was investigating Hillary Clinton, he apparently was working with Jim Comey in revising his conclusions and findings of the investigation before Hillary Clinton was even interviewed, before some 11 witnesses were even interviewed. And this Agent Strauss has had his finger in many different pies surrounding President Trump, including text messages between himself and his mistress, who was also an FBI agent, Lisa Page, in discussing Donald Trump using phrases such as F Trump, and talking, as Russ said, about an insurance policy, which may or may not have been this Fusion GPS memo. And if you're not spun around and dizzy by what I just said right now, you're a much better listener than I thought, because all of this is absolutely bananas.
Bananas, Gene, and there's just too much. I mean, you said a mouthful, and there's more. I mean, they're talking about a secret society of FBI agents that held meetings to discuss like tactics to take down Donald Trump.
Wait. Hold on. I just want to make sure it's not the Masons, right?
Listen, that was the first thing I had to double check. It's not the Masons, and it's not the Skull and Crossbones,
and it's not the stone. It's not the Stonecutters with the Simpsons. We do. No, it's not them.
Here he goes, folks. He's off the rails. All right, so the dossier.
Because I'm the one that goes off the rails.
The so-called dossier, right? So one of the main claims to fame in the dossier was that President Trump at some point in his life, hired 2 hookers in a Russian hotel to pee on each other on a bed that President Obama once stood at. That's how insane this dossier was, the information contained therein. So none of this stuff has ever been corroborated, any of it, right? But why is it important? So I have to just go a little deeper, Gene. I know you said a lot, but there's something else that really bothers me about the whole thing. So there's these things called FISA courts. I think we talked about them last week or the week before. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. It sets up – it's passed by Congress, signed by the president. It just recently got extended. Actually, it got extended without the president seeing this memo that we're going to talk about, which is even more troublesome. But, okay, so these courts, they're secret courts. Secret. Because it deals with foreign intelligence, right? So after 9/11, these courts became real big, and they were the in thing. You have people overseas who are foreign nationals communicating with people inside of America. So you need to get these warrants, but you can't tip off the public that these warrants exist. Otherwise, terrorism and other things would be, the terrorists will be tipped off. So they have these secret courts, Gene, that issue these warrants. And then there's incidental collection that happens because you have foreign nationals speaking to American citizens. Now, these people get caught up. And the normal practice, unless that American's actually committing a crime, they use the term masked, that their identity is masked.
Right, because Americans have constitutional rights.
Correct. In a real court
Fourth
with
Amendment
a real
rights.
Search warrant. Yes, a real warrant in a real court, a public court, not one of these secret courts under FISA. Now, what's happened over the years, Gene, especially recently with the Trump administration, some of these American citizens were unmasked for unknown and dubious reasons. There were generals who were unmasked in some of these things. And how did they get these warrants to begin with, Gene? And this is where I am having so much trouble, containing myself. How did they get some of these warrants dealing during the time of the campaign in the FISA court? It was with a dossier that you outlined that was bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton and her campaign, that contained false information that was not corroborated, that was most likely used by the FBI to go to a FISA court to obtain a warrant that incidentally collected information on Trump administration people who had nothing to do with anything that could have possibly been contained in the dossier because it was all fake, which spun up a special counsel who's been investigating the president and charging people within his campaign and his administration with crimes that are completely unrelated to any Russian collusion because there never was any. I mean, what did this guy get plead guilty to recently? Obstruction of justice was one because he might have misremembered something that he told the FBI, and one where some guy misfiled his taxes a few years back or did a business deal that had nothing to do with the Trump campaign.
Right. You're talking about
this investigation is a sham.
You're talking about George Papadopoulos, who his crime has been giving false information or perjuring himself to the FBI in an investigation, essentially lying to the FBI, not necessarily about anything with Russia or Trump, but just lying to the FBI. And Paul Manafort and his associate for taking foreign money and not registering as a foreign lobbyist for actions that took place years before the Trump campaign was even a twinkle in Donald Trump's eye. So you have that. But Russ, let me give you the latest on remember we talked about the secret societies that this FBI text messages allude to. It's being reported earlier this week that an FBI informant has informed Congress that there was indeed a secret society at the FBI that was holding secret meetings off-site after the election of Donald Trump. And this isn't coming from a fly-by-night source. We're talking about Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin went on TV to report this, that, quote, that secret society, we have an informant that's talking about a group that were holding secret meetings off-site. There is so much smoke here. And this is, of course, in reference to, we talked about Peter Strzok and Lisa Page revealing that there is a secret society of officials within the FBI that met the day after the election of Donald Trump to plot against the president-elect. Now, that's a U.S. senator stating on national television, he said this to Fox News, that there was a secret society, a cabal within the FBI, plotting against the elected president. It doesn't get scarier than that, Russ.
Gene, what is the definition of a coup? I mean, this is why I'm so, apprehensive about saying these things, because I truly do believe that there's treasonous activity. What is the definition of a coup? This is a soft coup if I've ever seen one, or an attempt.
It's the makings of one. Now, Senator Johnson did say that they have to dig into it, but again, this informant has stepped forward to say this. That's just scary in and of itself. Now, let's talk about the release the memo situation here, because we want to round out this segment a little bit. Information given to this